Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So, there's a lot of chatter about some institutions buying up Tesla stock throughout quarter two. JP Morgan bought another 6.6 million shares. Now they have over 46 million total, which would be $15.3 billion based on the price today. And JP Morgan has been increasing its stake for the past 3 quarters. Remember this one? Earlier this year, JP Morgan's scathing Tesla prediction Elon's car company will report the worst quarterly deliveries in 3 years. More importantly, all the while, JP Morgan's price target for Tesla stock, $120. All this to say, not everything is as it seems. And there are a handful of other firms that have also increased their Tesla stock holdings over 10% in quarter two, and Deutsche Bank upped its Tesla holdings in Q1 by 20%. But some others are selling. Personally, I've never put too much stock into these moves, pun intended. So everybody loves to see big money buying Tesla, but consider the voting implications too. If we take Tesla's outstanding share count of 3.2 billion and subtract Elon and Kimball's shares, as they'll likely recuse themselves from compensation voting, that's 411 million shares, then take the total shares owned by institutions, which from Fintel is 1.8 billion, and that would give institutions about 65% of the voting power, leaving retail with about 35%. All of this to serve as a reminder to make sure you can vote any shares you have before the November 6th meeting. The more big money that buys Tesla now, the more important all of our retail votes become. And Elon had a word for all Tesla short sellers, saying if they don't exit their short position before Tesla reaches autonomy at scale, they will be obliterated. As I said on X though, I would prefer Elon stays quiet about this because you don't warn the enemy before you attack. Either way though, this certainly sets up for some fireworks in 2026. There was an article interviewing some Tesla owners in Norway that were not happy with Elon's politics, but ultimately their takeaway was it's really all about the charging infrastructure and the seamless technology of the car. No one comes even close. And while Tesla sales in some European countries are not doing so well, that's not the case in Norway, where sales are up 24% year over year. But that was just the setup for this. Keys reported that Tesla got another exemption for testing FSD in Norway. Of course, some people took this news and interpreted it to mean something that it doesn't. Right now, Tesla only has 2 vehicles in total that have this exemption. So no, this is not some broad exemption for many Tesla vehicles to do testing. It is literally only 2 vehicles. They're doing these exemptions by VIN. They're talking about testing for 1 year and the exemption being granted for 2 years, which might lead some to be discouraged about when customers might actually get FSD in Norway. However, it sounds like the agency granting these exemptions is still largely in the dark, as they said this Tesla vehicle must be modified back after the test period. But as we all know, for regular supervised FSD, Tesla does 0 modifications for these vehicles. At this point, there's still a chance a very small handful of countries might get unsupervised FSD across the EU before the end of this year. But for anything widespread, it's shaping up like that will be 2026. Just to pair a bit of comedy with that, VW's Oliver Bloom just said from 2026, we will make sustainable autonomous mobility available on a large scale in Europe and the US. And this is how VW plans to do that with the ID. Buzz AD, which stands for autonomous driving. This vehicle was developed with Moya, which is VW's subsidiary that focuses on autonomy. And Uber has announced plans to buy 10,000 of these vehicles over the next 10 years. And the number for this vehicle you need to know is 9. That's 9 LiDAR sensors. So look, I really do hope they can pull this off, but I just have my doubts they'll be doing it on a large scale in the Europe and the US by next year. I've been running Electrified now for 5 years. Between that and getting involved with a few entrepreneurial endeavors behind the scenes, I cannot encourage you all enough to pursue your passions. You never know what can happen, especially now with all of the tools we have available. But let me warn you, while creating a website has never been easier, the technical aspects are still as frustrating as ever. ever. Server setups, backups, caching, domain hosting, CDN integrations, load times, etc. These hassles have caused many a soldier to wave the white flag, which is exactly why I've partnered with Kinsta, the sponsor of this video. Kinsta is a managed hosting provider for WordPress sites that offers fast, secure, and reliable website hosting with 24/7 support. So all of those challenges I just mentioned are erased, as Kinsta can handle all of that for you, allowing you to focus on the things that matter most. Kinsta will help fix problems like slow speeds, downtime, security risks, and more. And yes, that 24/7 support allows you to talk to real humans, which is a painfully rare thing in 2025. G2 also ranked Kinsta number 1 in WordPress hosting, outranking 368 other providers. And don't worry, even if you have zero technical experience, the Kinsta control panel is super straightforward and easy to use. And for those of you that are a little dangerous in this space, Kinsta is in a league of its own with security with an enterprise level firewall and DDoS protection, which is crucial given the proliferation of nefarious actors online nowadays. So if you're like me, not wanting to waste time on back-end technical hassles, you can easily switch your hosting to Kinsta, as they will manage the entire migration for you. Plus, you'll get your first month free and a 30-day money-back guarantee if you use my link below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen to get started. J.D. Power came out with its 5th annual EV infrastructure study. They said non-charging visits at public EV chargers where people have problems and can't actually charge have hit the lowest level in 4 years. A clear indicator reliability and customer experience are steadily improving. But you have to square that with this. There was a 10-point decrease when it comes to overall satisfaction with fast charging. 2 factors driving that decline: payment and cost. So overall, the study reveals a notable improvement in charging reliability despite lower overall satisfaction. Expanding on the lower satisfaction ratings, number 1, cost, was the least satisfying aspect overall. Part of the decrease is due to non-Tesla owners using Tesla superchargers, which delivers a far less satisfying user experience relative to the costs incurred in comparison to those of Tesla owners, which is a confusing way to say non-Tesla owners are paying materially higher rates than Tesla owners. It's also worth pointing out that despite Tesla coming in first for overall satisfaction, their score was actually down 22 points relative to last year. Just so you know, this study is based on responses from over 7,400 people throughout the first half of this year. They also pointed out non-Tesla charging networks like the new one from Mercedes-Benz, from Rivian, and Ford collectively had the same satisfaction score as Tesla. But those networks were not eligible to be ranked because for now they're too small. However, I do find that promising if you extrapolate that over the next 5 years. If we're ever going to change this perception being reality and that the public charging is still way too limited, we still need all hands on deck. But overall, for fast charging, the supercharger network still number 1 with a score of 709, followed in second place by Red E at 668. And bringing up the rear, we have Blink, EVgo, and then Electrify America. And for level 2 charging, Tesla's destination chargers still number 1 at 661, followed in second by ChargePoint at 628. But again, when it comes to supercharging, because non-Tesla owners now have access to the supercharger network, they are the reason Tesla's scores are actually coming down. And one other point I didn't see anybody else talking about, we have to remember when these networks just started out, a lot of the providers were artificially keeping the prices low so that they could earn some market adoption. But those days are over, and the days of free charging incentives are largely over. And you pair that with the rising cost of electricity in some regions, and it's just not a good equation. Which is part of why I've always harped on the solar and battery storage model for charging. It's the optimal setup to drive down costs over the long term, which is ultimately what will matter most. And if you're not familiar with Red E, they're based out of Detroit and they have about 100 170 different locations with roughly 1,000 charging ports across those sites. It's a private company founded in 2020, and they have actually partnered with Ford, opening up all of their locations to Ford's Blue Oval network, which just means Ford EV owners can access Red E charging stations across the US and a few in Canada. I figured it was a good time to zoom out and give an overall update on the US charging network. After Q2, we have just under 60,000 ports at just under 12,000 locations. And overall, by the end of this year, the number of ports is expected to grow by 19% year over year. 2 years ago, the US did a study that showed 182,000 fast charging ports would be needed by 2030 to support the expected 33 million EVs on the road, which would mean we're roughly 1/3 of the way there. Right now, much of the industry is expecting the charging port numbers to actually come through, but the expectation is US consumers might not hold up their end of the bargain when it comes to buying that number of EVs. And tangentially, the president of Electrify America just said he does not foresee EA getting into the Class 8 trailer charging game, which of course just leaves more of a blue ocean for Tesla and its mega charger rollout. Replying to Jordan from The Limiting Factor, Elon said, "For the foreseeable future, the major AI companies will continue to prosper, as will xAI. There's just so much to do. Outside of real-world AI, Google has the biggest compute and data advantage for now, so currently has the highest probability of being the leader. That may change in a few years." I just wanted to clarify this because Elon did say outside of real-world AI, meaning that comment excludes things like Tesla's FSD, Optimus, and any other Elon venture that's going to embody AI in a physical product in the real world. It seemed to me like there was some confusion about that statement from Elon. And if you're thinking, wait a second, I thought xAI was already performing better than Google's Gemini, well, yes, on certain metrics it is. But this is exactly what I mean when I say we need more nuance to the conversation. Grok might be better with math, coding, and reasoning, but Gemini is still probably better with something like multimodal processing. So despite xAI and its incredible achievements in a very short amount of time, we have to remember Google is planning to spend $75 billion on AI hardware alone this year. You might remember this one from earlier this year. We were talking about CATL's new Naxtra battery and how prices of $10 per kilowatt hour were thrown out there. And today, some of the most affordable LFP batteries come in around $75 per kilowatt hour. And since then, a fair amount has happened. CATL has started mass producing sodium-ion cells at their 30 gigawatt-hour facility. Cells are set to go to Chery and BYD later this year, and these sodium-ion batteries already power 250,000 urban delivery vans across China. These sodium-ion cells are said to have a lifetime cycle capacity of 10,000, whereas the average Tesla is expected to be around 1,500 to 5,000. The cheaper cells are enabled by the input cost of sodium carbonate being around $200 per ton compared to lithium, which fluctuates, but will hover around $15,000 per ton. CATL executives just said the company can switch chemistries like changing shoes, so these sodium batteries can cost 10% of what current lithium-ion batteries cost. That's not 10% cheaper, that's 10% of. Example, if a Tesla battery pack costs $7,000 right now, a comparable sodium-ion battery pack would be $700. Now, to date, one of the big problems has been energy density. Lithium cells were around 185 watt-hours per kilogram, whereas early sodium batteries were only half of that. But with CATL's Naxtra, they're touting 175 watt-hours per kilogram that can power a car much like a lithium-ion battery. But I think this is where people are getting lost. This Naxtra line of EV batteries does include some lithium-ion cells, meaning it's not just sodium-ion cells. All of the vehicles that have been announced using this Naxtra technology are part of a hybrid battery system, mixing sodium-ion ion with lithium ion. And yes, this hybrid battery system will be used in vehicles with that and a combustion engine, and then other vehicles will use that hybrid battery system alone, aka with no combustion engine. The actual name for that system from CATL is the Freevoy Dual Power Battery. That's the tech where no combustion engine is used, but again, it's also using some lithium ion cells. So of course, at $10 per kilowatt hour, if you can have an energy density even close to LFP cells, that would actually change the game. The problem is we don't know much about how CATL is doing this, and for sodium ion alone, we are likely still a few years away before it's adopted in electric vehicles at any type of scale. For now though, battery storage and shorter range applications are great use cases for sodium ion batteries. And we may be approaching a point where use in a cybercab could make sense in the not too distant future. We do have ex-Tesla engineers developing sodium-ion battery prototypes, and Tesla has been looking at using SIBs in the Powerwall. From here forward, SIBs is sodium-ion batteries. Sodium is far more plentiful than lithium. They're less prone to thermal runaway. They have superior low-temperature performance. They use eco-friendly materials, no cobalt, no nickel. They support rapid charging and have long life cycles. So my point here is the gap is being closed between where this tech is now and when it will be ready for electric vehicles. These hybrid systems will help validate commercialization at smaller scales and establish the supply chain. And then over the back half of the 2020s, this could certainly change the game for parts of Tesla's business. And I do think it's time to follow these developments here a bit closer, which is what I'll do going forward. We have this Korean source that gave us an update on Samsung and the status of the Taylor fab in Texas. They said the target date for operation is the second half of next year. Equipment installation will be sequentially carried out from the fourth quarter of this year to the first half of next year. And yes, this Taylor fab is the one where Tesla is expected to be the main customer for AI6. The industry is estimating the initial production capacity of the Taylor fab will be 10 to 15,000 sheets per month. A sheet just refers to a silicon wafer, which is that thin circular disc onto which the integrated circuits are fabricated. But frankly, for now, that number is not as important as the timeline. They said equipment suppliers have begun preliminary work to supply equipment to the Taylor fab. Setup of key front-end equipment will begin in the first quarter of 2026. This will be followed by prototype production to stabilize the process. However, process stabilization at the Taylor fab is expected to take considerable time. This due to the cutting-edge 2nm process and the fact that AI6 has a larger die than the application processor, making yields challenging. And the word is initial yields could be between 20 to 40% initially, and the goal is to be around 60% sometime between 2026 and 2027. And the die is just the raw silicon chip before any packaging. And of course, Tesla's AI6 is going to be bigger than something that would go into a smartphone. This so each die can accommodate more cores, memory, and interconnects. And ensuring reliability is a challenge because automotive chips require higher reliability than application processors. Again, like something that would be in a smartphone. An official said equipment setup is expected to be completed in the first half of next year, and the Taylor fab is scheduled to begin full operation in 2026. But the problem here is understanding what full operation actually means. In short, there's likely to be a 1 to 2 year period where Samsung has to work out the kinks and work to get these yields up and ensure this new 2nm process is as reliable as is required. So I know people out there saw this and were thinking that AI6 was going to be ready for a Tesla vehicle or Optimus or some compute training sometime in 2026, but that is not the case. I'm still not expecting AI6 to be ready for any Tesla application until 2027 at the earliest. We have to keep in mind Tesla's AI5 that will be coming from TSMC won't be ready for Tesla until the end of 2026. So you have to ask, if AI6 was going to be ready also by the end of 2026, why would Tesla even bother with AI5? And the answer answer is AI6 is not going to be ready by the end of next year. So again, all you need to know, realistically, it might take 2+ years from the start of prototyping at this Taylor fab for Samsung. They have to work on process stabilization on this new cutting edge 2 nanometer node. They have to work on yield optimization for Tesla's AI6, which has the larger die. They're going to have to run through extensive automotive grade testing. Obviously, the reliability of this new chip is going to be of the utmost importance for FSD. And based on everything else I'm reading about the industry, going from prototyping to volume production for a 2 nanometer process is likely to take 2+ years. Which is why I said yes, there's a chance that this chip shows up and is ready for Tesla sometime in 2027, but realistically, I'm not expecting it until 2028. And that would assume no major delays. So it was very important to clarify that because once again, X can be great, but so much context and nuance is lost, and there are many accounts now just spewing nonsense around as fast as possible without actually understanding what certain things mean. So no, AI6 is not going to replace AI5 by next year, but given the importance of AI6 to Tesla's future, any developments here will be noteworthy. Speaking of timelines, Ian shared a list of all the different automakers and their claims about autonomy over the last really decade plus. And naturally, the mainstream media mostly gives all of these companies a pass. Elon replied to this saying, "I might be late, but I always deliver in the end." Which is why I made this very limited edition gear, Tesla making the impossible merely late. The CEO of DeepMind was talking about this advanced AI simulation scenario. To keep it very simple, it's where we have an AI creating this world, this simulated world, and then another AI is acting inside of it. This setup could unlock unlimited training data for robotics and AGI. Elon replied to this saying Tesla and xAI are doing the same. So for both FSD and Optimus, we have AI creating these virtual worlds on the fly, while another AI, call it Optimus or FSD, operates inside that world, taking actions and learning from these different interactions. So this would create a fully AI-driven loop. Again, AI creates the world and then another AI acts inside of it. And this would avoid needing any pre-built environments or human intervention. And this is the exact type of thing I wish Elon would comment on in more detail more often. In Tuesday's video, we talked about Tesla reassigning some of its employees. Elon clarified the silicon hardware engineering team is going to report to Aaron Rodgers, again, not the quarterback, and the silicon software team will report to Ashok. Plenty of people were asking who Aaron is, and this is him, Aaron Rodgers, Director of Autopilot Hardware at Tesla. The weekly Tesla China number came in at 13,400 compared to the same week in Q2. That number was 3,070. So quarter over quarter, Tesla China up 71%, and year over year, Tesla China's down 11%. But zooming out year to date, Tesla China's down 5.8%. As Luca highlighted, it appears as though Tesla has bought a Fondirex jet cooling unit to improve its gigacasting technology. Luca wrote an article about this, and the simple takeaways: Fondirex develops these tools that target porosity in high pressure die casting. They use a vacuum system which basically sucks out air from these die cavities to minimize gas getting stuck. They also have a jet cooling system which is targeted to hotspots, which improves targeted temperature control, and frankly a list of other technology as well, but all of them together combine to give stronger castings that have the ability to sustain significant deformation before being fractured. So for Tesla, these gigacastings with minimal porosity, better structural integrity, better crash safety, and better weldability can also reduce the defect and the scrap rates, which could cut manufacturing costs by 20 to 30%. So in the midst of all of the excitement with the robotaxi service, don't forget Tesla continues to make improvements on the manufacturing side as well. Tesla Chan shared this photo saying that he's expecting it to hit showrooms in China sometime in the next week. So the Model Y L is set to make its official public debut here pretty soon. This picture was taken at the Seaside, California Tesla service location. So could this be the more affordable Model Y? Could it be the performance variant disguised with the aero cap wheels? I'm not sure, but Q4 will be here before we know it. And at Giga Berlin in the parking lot, there are dozens of what appear to be Model Y variants under wraps. So maybe we get an announcement toward the end of September, but if I had to guess, I'd still go with into October. Replying to Gregor Truck asking about the B pillar for Sentry mode in the Cybertruck, Sedant, the Cybertruck program manager, said it will come soon. Cybertruck was not 100% carryover in execution like Sexy, so it required work. Team has finished work on this and just need to make sure it's validated and runs reliably, which it should for its feature. Somebody captured the upcoming Chevy Bolt, and here it is. Right now, the expectation is this vehicle will be available sometime in early 2026. Automotive journalist Scotty Reese did a write-up on Tesla's robotaxi service in Austin. Sawyer shared it, so I'm guessing most of you have seen it already, but in case you missed it, she gave the review from a woman's perspective and things that they think about. She said she felt safer because there was no driver, passenger control over locking and unlocking, the ability to change your pickup and drop off location, and quick access to support. Overall, she said the rides were flawless in her experience, with the system handling traffic, construction, and parking lots patiently and considerately. She said there were no unsafe behaviors like crossing double yellow lines or sudden braking. She highlighted the lower cost for Tesla compared to Waymo and Uber, and she noted how Tesla was faster and more human-like in its driving. It shows better drop-offs, and it feels more advanced despite lacking LiDAR and radar. And she noted how Waymo's drop-off behavior was considerably more disruptive to surrounding traffic. So based on Scotty's experience, she trusts the Tesla robotaxi for safety and convenience, especially for women and children at night or alone. Tesla stock closed the day at $335.58, down 1.12%, while the NDX was down 0.07%. The volume was 15% below the average. Don't forget, check out Kinsta linked below for those interested to remove all of the headaches when it comes to managing websites. Hope you have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.